What if I told you that two black men destroyed their entire careers in 20 seconds and changed the world forever? October 16th, 1968. Olympic Stadium, Mexico City. 7:32 in the evening. The medal ceremony for the men's 200-meter sprint. 68,000 spectators packed into the stadium. Television cameras broadcasting to hundreds of millions of people across the globe. The entire world was watching. Tommie Smith stood on the highest podium. 24 years old. Gold medal hanging around his neck. World record holder. 19.83 seconds. The fastest human being on the planet. Next to him, Peter Norman of Australia on the second podium. Silver medalist. White Australian sprinter. Quiet. Humble. And on the third podium, John Carlos. 23 years old. Bronze medal gleaming against his chest. Born in Harlem. Fire in his eyes. The Star-Spangled Banner began to play. Smith and Carlos turned toward the American flag. Then they bowed their heads. Eyes cast down. And they raised their fists. Black-gloved. Powerful. Defiant. Thrust toward the Mexican sky. Smith's right fist representing black power. Carlos's left fist representing black unity. Both men wore only black socks on their feet. No shoes. Smith wore a black scarf around his neck. Carlos wore beads, and his tracksuit unzipped. Silence swept through the stadium like a wave crashing on shore. Then gasps. Sharp intakes of breath from 68,000 throats. Then boos. Loud, angry, hateful. Then scattered cheers from Mexican students and activists sympathetic to the civil rights struggle. Then more boos drowning out everything else. For 90 seconds they stood frozen in that position. Heads bowed, fists raised. While the anthem played and the world watched and history shifted on its axis, the anthem ended. Smith and Carlos lowered their fists. They walked off the podium in complete silence. Behind them, Peter Norman stood at attention with an OPHR badge pinned to his Australian tracksuit. Olympic Project for Human Rights. Solidarity across race. Solidarity across nations. Within 48 hours, Smith and Carlos were expelled from the Olympic Village. Banned from the Games. Their athletic careers destroyed. They returned to America facing death threats, poverty, and systematic erasure. The establishment tried desperately to bury that image, that moment, that act of courage. But that 20-second gesture became the most powerful protest in sports history. And for decades, they didn't want you to know the real story. They didn't want you to understand what it cost. They didn't want you to see the pattern of how they destroy every black person who dares to speak truth to power. This is the story they hid from your history books. This is your stolen legacy. And today, that changes. By the end of this video, you will understand why two Olympic champions chose to sacrifice everything for justice. You will discover the hidden movement behind that salute. The Olympic Project for Human Rights that almost shut down the 1968 Games entirely. You will learn about the white Australian runner who stood with them and paid the price for 38 years of his life. After watching this, you will never see Colin Kaepernick's protest the same way. You will understand why athletes today still face punishment for speaking truth. You will see how this connects to every modern athlete who dares to stand up. LeBron James, Megan Rapinoe, Naomi Osaka, every single one. This is not ancient history buried in dusty textbooks that nobody reads. This happened in your parents' lifetime. Maybe your lifetime. If you were alive in 1968, you watched the world try to destroy two black heroes for demanding dignity. If you are younger, they hid this story from you on purpose, deliberately, systematically. You will know why the Olympic Committee tried to erase this moment from history. How a white Australian became a hero the world forgot. Why this protest terrified the establishment more than any riot or rebellion. And you will never see modern athlete activism the same way again. This is not just about sports. This is about power. This is about who controls the narrative. This is about what happens when Black excellence refuses to stay silent. This is about your identity, your inheritance, your responsibility. And here is what they never told you. The 1968 Olympics did not happen in a vacuum. That raised fist did not come from nowhere. To understand why Smith and Carlos did what they did, you need to understand the year 1968 itself. Because 1968 was not just a year, it was an earthquake that shook the entire planet. 1968, the year the world exploded. January, the Tet Offensive in Vietnam. Viet Cong forces launched coordinated attacks on more than 100 cities and towns across South Vietnam. American boys were dying by the thousands for a war the government kept saying we were winning. 58,000 American soldiers would eventually die in Vietnam. The lies were catching up with reality. April 4th, 1968. Memphis, Tennessee. 6:01 in the evening. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. stepped onto the balcony of the Lorraine Motel. Room 306. He was there supporting striking sanitation workers. Black men carrying signs that read, "I am a man." A single rifle shot rang out. The bullet struck King in the jaw and severed his spinal cord. He died at 7:05. Within hours, cities across America erupted in flames. Washington, D.C., Baltimore, Chicago, Detroit, Kansas City, Newark. Over 100 cities burned. Federal troops deployed to restore order. 43 people killed in the riots. Thousands arrested. Entire neighborhoods destroyed. Black America's greatest prophet of nonviolence had been murdered, and the rage could no longer be contained. June 5th, 1968. Los Angeles, California. Ambassador Hotel. 12:15 in the morning. Robert F. Kennedy had just won the California Democratic primary. He was the leading candidate for president. He walked through the hotel kitchen as a shortcut to meet the press. A gunman fired 8 shots. 1 bullet entered Kennedy's brain. He died 26 hours later. Hope murdered. Again. August 1968. Chicago, Illinois. Democratic National Convention. Thousands of anti-war protesters filled the streets. Mayor Richard Daley ordered the Chicago police to clear them out. The police attacked, clubs swinging, tear gas filling the air, blood on the pavement, all broadcast on live television. America watched its own police force beat its own citizens in the streets, while the world looked on. This was 1968. Assassinations, war, riots, police brutality. The entire system seemed to be collapsing under the weight of its own lies and violence. And into this chaos stepped a young sociology professor at San Jose State College named Dr. Harry Edwards. Harry Edwards was 25 years old, brilliant, fearless, 6 feet 8 inches tall, former athlete turned activist. He looked at the upcoming Olympics in Mexico City and saw an opportunity, not just to compete, not just to win medals, but to expose American racism to the entire world on the biggest stage imaginable. In October 1967, 1 year before the Mexico City Olympics, Edwards founded the Olympic Project for Human Rights, OPHR. The goal was simple and revolutionary. Use the Olympics as a platform to force America to confront its treatment of Black people. Make the world see what America was doing to its Black citizens. Edwards issued a challenge to every Black athlete in America. Boycott the 1968 Olympics. Refuse to compete. Refuse to win medals for a country that treats you as less than human. Refuse to entertain white America while your brothers and sisters are being murdered in the streets. The OPHR had specific demands. Remove Avery Brundage as president of the International Olympic Committee. Brundage had Nazi sympathies. He had allowed Nazi Germany to host the 1936 Olympics. He had opposed efforts to ban South Africa and Rhodesia from the Olympics despite their apartheid policies. He had to go. Ban South Africa and Rhodesia from Olympic competition until they ended apartheid. Do not let racist governments use the Olympics for legitimacy and propaganda. Restore Muhammad Ali's heavyweight boxing title. Ali had been stripped of his title in 1967 for refusing to be drafted into the Vietnam War. He said, "No Viet Cong ever called me a racial slur." He was right. America punished him for it. Hire more black coaches in American sports. Black athletes were winning medals and making millions for white owners and institutions. But there were almost no black coaches or administrators with real power. These were the demands. Reasonable, just, necessary. And the response from white America? Outrage. How dare black athletes politicize the sacred Olympics? How dare they be ungrateful for the opportunity to represent America? How dare they use sports as a platform for protest? But Harry Edwards did not back down. He organized meetings with black athletes across the country. He made the case. You have a responsibility to your people. You have a platform. Use it. The Olympics are not just about sports. They are about power. They are about image. They are about propaganda. America wants to show the world that democracy works, that capitalism is superior to communism, that black people are free and equal. But you know the truth. You live the truth. Do not let them use you to lie to the world. Black athletes across America faced the hardest decision of their lives: boycott and sacrifice their Olympic dreams, the dreams they had worked toward since childhood, the dreams that represented their one chance to escape poverty, to make their families proud, to achieve something great, or compete and remain silent while their people suffered. Some athletes chose to boycott, others chose to compete. The movement fractured. There would be no complete boycott of the 1968 Olympics. But there would be something else, something no one expected. Tommie Smith and John Carlos chose a third path: compete, win, and then protest on the biggest stage in the world. Let me tell you who these men were. Tommie Smith was born June 6, 1944, in Clarksville, Texas, 7th of 12 children. His parents were sharecroppers. Think about that. Sharecropping. Slavery by another name. Working land you do not own for wages that keep you perpetually in debt. This was Tommie Smith's childhood. Cotton fields. Poverty. Texas racism in the 1940s and 50s. When Tommie was 6 years old, his family moved to California. Lemoore, California. They picked cotton and grapes. The entire family worked the fields, children included. This was survival. This was black life in America. But Tommie was special. Brilliant student, extraordinary athlete, speed that seemed almost supernatural. He could run like the wind itself was chasing him. He earned a scholarship to San Jose State University. He studied sociology, and his professor was Harry Edwards. Think about that. Tommie Smith was not just a dumb jock. He was not just a runner. He was studying sociology, the science of society, the science of power structures and oppression, and how systems work. He was learning to understand the very forces that had kept his family in poverty for generations. And he was fast. Faster than anyone on Earth. By 1968, Tommie Smith held 11 world records. 11. He was the fastest human being alive. The 200-meter sprint was his specialty. And heading into the Mexico City Olympics, he was the favorite to win gold. John Carlos was born June 5, 1945, in Harlem, New York. One day younger than Tommie Smith, but a completely different background. Harlem, the projects, poverty of a different kind, urban poverty, rats and roaches and police brutality and gang violence and systemic neglect. This was John Carlos's childhood. Carlos was explosive, powerful, a sprinter with incredible speed and raw emotion. Where Smith was calculated and strategic, Carlos was passionate and spontaneous. Where Smith was quiet and thoughtful, Carlos was loud and fierce. But they shared the same pain, the same rage at injustice, the same determination to use their platform for something bigger than themselves. Carlos also attended San Jose State University, also studied under Harry Edwards, also joined the Olympic Project for Human Rights, and he was fast enough to make the Olympic team in the 200-meter sprint. Two young black men, both 23 and 24 years old, both from poverty, both brilliant athletes, both students of sociology and systemic oppression, both ready to risk everything. And then there was Peter Norman, Peter George. Norman was born June 15, 1942, in Melbourne, Australia. White Australian, son of a butcher. Worked as a butcher's apprentice himself. Quiet, humble, not political in any obvious way. Just a white guy from Australia who could run really fast. But Peter Norman had something inside him that most white people do not have. Moral courage. He was a fierce opponent of the White Australia policy. This was Australia's racist immigration law that banned non-white people from entering the country. Norman thought it was evil. He said so publicly. In 1960s Australia, that made him an outsider. Norman qualified for the 200-meter final in Mexico City. He was not expected to medal, but he ran the race of his life. And when the smoke cleared, he had won silver, second place, between Tommie Smith's gold and John Carlos's bronze. And that is where the story gets interesting. Because what happened next was not planned weeks in advance. It was improvised in less than 24 hours, and it changed everything. October 15th, 1968, 8 o'clock in the evening, the 200-meter final. The race that would determine who was the fastest man in the world. The gun fired. Tommie Smith exploded out of the blocks. Perfect start. At 50 meters, he was in the lead. At 100 meters, coming out of the curve, he was pulling away. At 150 meters, he was gone. Untouchable. The rest of the field was running for second place. Smith crossed the finish line in 19.83 seconds. World record. He shattered the previous record by 0.3 seconds. In sprinting, that is an eternity. That is dominance. Peter Norman finished second, 20.06 seconds. Australian record. The run of his life. He had never run that fast before. He would never run that fast again. John Carlos finished third, 20.10 seconds. Bronze medal. As they walked off the track, Carlos turned to Smith. "We have to do something." Smith nodded. "I know, let's figure it out." They had already discussed protest ideas with Harry Edwards and other OPHR members, but nothing was finalized. Nothing was certain. Now, with medals guaranteed, with the eyes of the world about to focus on them during the medal ceremony, they had less than 24 hours to plan the most iconic protest in sports history. That night, in the Olympic Village, Smith and Carlos met in secret. They could not do what Harry Edwards originally wanted. They could not boycott. They were already here. They had already competed. They had already won. But they would not remain silent. They would use the medal ceremony. They would use that moment when the entire world was watching. The symbolism had to be perfect. Every detail had to mean something. This was not just a protest. This was a message, a sermon, a proclamation to the entire world about what it means to be black in America. Smith's wife, Denise, had brought a pair of black leather gloves to Mexico City. The gloves would represent black power, black strength, the raised fist that had become the symbol of the Black Power movement. Huey Newton and the Black Panthers, Stokely Carmichael and SNCC. The raised fist meant we will not beg for freedom. We will take it. We will defend ourselves. We are not afraid, but there was a problem. Carlos had forgotten his gloves in the Olympic Village. What do? Smith had an idea. We share one pair. I will wear the right glove. You wear the left. Smith's right fist would represent black power and strength. Carlos's left fist would represent black unity and solidarity. Together, they would be complete. Every detail mattered. They would remove their shoes. They would walk to the podium in only black socks, symbol of black poverty in America. While white America lived in abundance, black America walked in poverty, barefoot, struggling. The socks would show the world. Smith would wear a black scarf around his neck, symbol of black pride, symbol of black identity, symbol of the African heritage that slavery tried to erase but could not destroy. Carlos would wear beads, memory of black men lynched, ancestors stolen from Africa, ancestors worked to death in cotton fields, ancestors hanged from trees while white crowds watched and took photographs. The beads would represent every black body swinging from a rope in the American South. Carlos would unzip his tracksuit top. Solidarity with working-class black people, blue-collar workers, the sanitation workers in Memphis that Martin Luther King died supporting, the people who work hard every day and still cannot escape poverty because the system is rigged against them. Both men would bow their heads during the anthem. Refusal to acknowledge a flag that does not protect black people. Refusal to stand at attention for a country that treats you as less than human. The bowed head would say, "We do not accept this. We do not consent to this oppression." They had it. The plan was set. Now they just needed the courage to follow through. But then something unexpected happened. The day before the medal ceremony, Smith and Carlos told Peter Norman what they planned to do. They did not have to tell him. He was not part of OPHR. He was not black. He was not American. He could have just stood on his podium and collected his silver medal and gone home to Australia and lived his life. But Peter Norman asked them a question. "Do you believe in human rights?" Smith and Carlos looked at him. "Yes, of course." Norman nodded. "Then I believe in you. What do you want me to do?" John Carlos expected fear in Norman's eyes, expected hesitation, expected the response he had gotten from most white people his entire life. "I support you in principle, but I do not want to get involved. I do not want to risk anything. I do not want to pay a price for your freedom." But instead, Carlos saw love. He saw solidarity. He saw a white man willing to stand with black men, even if it cost him everything. On the way to the medal ceremony, Norman saw Paul Hoffman, a white American rower wearing an OPHR badge. Norman walked up to him. "Can I wear that?" Hoffman looked at him, surprised. "Are you sure? You know what this means?" Norman nodded. "I am sure." Hoffman unpinned the badge from his own shirt and handed it to Norman. Norman pinned it to his Australian tracksuit, right over his heart. Olympic Project for Human Rights. Solidarity across race. Solidarity across nations. A white Australian standing with black Americans in their fight for justice. And then it was time. October 16th, 1968. 7:30 in the evening. The medal ceremony. Smith, Carlos, and Norman walked into the Olympic Stadium. 68,000 people in the stands. Cameras from every nation on Earth. Hundreds of millions of people watching on television. This was the moment. This was it. David Cecil, the 6th Marquess of Exeter, presented the medals. Gold around Smith's neck. Silver around Norman's. Bronze around Carlos's. The three men climbed the podium. Smith on the highest platform. Norman on the second. Carlos on the third. Both black men wore only black socks, no shoes. Smith's black scarf was visible around his neck. Carlos's beads glinted in the stadium lights. Norman's OPHR badge shone on his chest. Every symbol in place, every detail meaningful. The star-spangled banner began to play. Smith and Carlos turned toward the American flag. Then they bowed their heads, eyes cast down toward the ground. Then they raised their fists, black-gloved, powerful, unwavering, thrust into the Mexican sky. Smith's right fist, Carlos's left fist. Both men frozen in that position. 90 seconds. That is how long the anthem lasted. 90 seconds of defiance, 90 seconds of courage, 90 seconds of truth broadcast to every corner of the earth. The stadium reacted immediately. Gasps rippled through the crowd like electricity. Then boos, loud, angry, hateful. White spectators screaming at them. How dare you? How dare you disrespect America? How dare you disrespect the flag? How dare you be ungrateful? Some people cheered, mostly Mexican students and activists sympathetic to the civil rights struggle. Mostly people who understood what it meant to live under oppression. Mostly people who had their own fights against their own governments. They understood. They cheered, but most of the crowd booed. The sound was deafening, overwhelming, hate pouring down from the stands like rain. The anthem ended. Smith and Carlos lowered their fists. They turned and walked off the podium in complete silence. No celebration, no smiles, just the weight of what they had done settling on their shoulders. Peter Norman stood at attention during the anthem. He did not raise his fist. That was not his place. That was not his statement to make. But the OPHR badge on his chest told the world where he stood. It told the world he believed in human rights. It told the world he stood with Smith and Carlos, even if it meant he would pay a price, and he would pay. For 38 years, he would pay. The photograph of that moment was captured by photographers from around the world. Tommie Smith on the highest podium, right fist raised. John Carlos on the third podium, left fist raised. Peter Norman between them, OPHR badge on his chest. All three men part of history now. All three men about to be punished for it. Within hours, the backlash began, and it would destroy all three of their lives. But before we get to that, you need to understand something. This was not an isolated incident. This was not just two black athletes being emotional or impulsive. This was part of a pattern that goes back centuries, a pattern that continues today. Every single time black people in America build something, achieve something, speak truth to power, the system destroys them. Every single time. And the method is always the same. Punish them, erase them, rewrite the story, make them disappear. What happened to Smith and Carlos in the hours and days after that salute proves this pattern beyond any doubt. And what you are about to hear will make you understand why Colin Kaepernick still does not have a job in the NFL, why LeBron James gets told to shut up and dribble, why every black athlete who speaks truth faces the same systematic destruction. This is the pattern, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Within hours of the salute, the media exploded. The New York Times headline, October 18th, 1968. Two black power advocates ousted from Olympics. The Los Angeles Times called it an embarrassment to America. The Chicago Tribune said Smith and Carlos had disgraced the nation. White American journalists lined up to attack them. Ungrateful, anti-American, militants, radicals, troublemakers. Brent Musburger, the ABC sportscaster, who would go on to become one of the most famous voices in American sports, called Smith and Carlos worse than that. He said they were a pair of dark-skinned stormtroopers. Think about that language. Stormtroopers. Nazi imagery, used against two black men protesting racism. The irony was lost on exactly no one. Jim Murray of the Los Angeles Times wrote that Smith and Carlos were juvenile, impatient, and petulant. He said they had thrown away a chance to be heroes, as if being a hero means staying silent while your people are murdered in the streets. The white media did not want to talk about why Smith and Carlos protested. They did not want to discuss the black socks representing poverty, the beads representing lynching victims, the scarf representing black pride, the bowed heads representing refusal to accept oppression. No, they only wanted to talk about the gesture itself, the raised fist, the Black Power salute. They called it militant, violent, threatening, even though Smith and Carlos never threatened anyone, never hurt anyone, never called for violence. They simply stood on a podium and raised their fists while an anthem played. But to white America, that was violence. That was threat. Because black people demanding dignity is always seen as violence by those who profit from black oppression. And then Avery Brundage got involved. Avery Brundage was the president of the International Olympic Committee. 81 years old, powerful, connected, and deeply, deeply racist. This was the same man who had allowed Nazi Germany to host the 1936 Olympics. The same man who had opposed efforts to ban South Africa despite apartheid. The same man who had fought against letting women compete in certain Olympic events because he thought women were too delicate. Brundage called Smith and Carlos's protest a deliberate and violent breach of the fundamental principles of the Olympic spirit. He said politics had no place in the Olympics, which is hilarious because the Olympics have always been political. Hosting the Olympics is a political statement. Choosing which countries can compete is a political statement. Playing national anthems and raising national flags is political. But somehow, when black people make a political statement about their own oppression, suddenly politics do not belong in sports. Brundage gave the United States Olympic Committee an ultimatum: expel Tommie Smith and John Carlos from the Olympic Games immediately, or I will expel the entire American Olympic team from competition. Every athlete, every medal contender, gone. The USOC hesitated at first. Some members thought the punishment was too harsh. But Brundage did not back down. He had the power. He had the votes. He had the support of other white National Olympic committees around the world. And he was willing to destroy the entire American team to make an example of two black men who dared to speak truth. October 18th, 1968. 48 hours after the salute, the USOC caved. They issued a statement. The actions of Smith and Carlos were contrary to the standards of good manners and sportsmanship. Therefore, they are expelled from the United States Olympic team and ordered to remove themselves from the Olympic Village immediately. Smith and Carlos were given hours to pack their belongings and leave Mexico City. They were banned from all Olympic facilities, banned from all Olympic events, stripped of their credentials, treated like criminals, like terrorists, like enemies of the state. For what? For raising their fists, for wearing black socks, for bowing their heads, for 60 seconds of silent protest. The message was clear. The message was intentional. Protest equals destruction. Speak equals exile. Challenge white supremacy, and we will destroy your life. Other black athletes at the Mexico City Olympics took note. They watched Smith and Carlos get expelled. They watched the media attack them. They watched white America's rage, and they understood. The system would tolerate black athletic excellence, but not black political consciousness. Lee Evans won gold in the 400-meter sprint. He wore a black beret on the podium, but he removed it during the anthem. He wanted to protest, but he also wanted to keep his Olympic credential. He had been terrorized into moderation. Ralph Boston won bronze in the long jump. He received his medal barefoot, a subtle protest, a gesture of solidarity. But nothing as bold as Smith and Carlos. He could not risk it. The New York Times reported that the behavior of other black athletes at the medal ceremonies had been tempered by the expulsion of Smith and Carlos. Tempered. That is the word they used. Tempered means controlled, restrained, beaten into submission. That was the goal. Punish Smith and Carlos so severely that no other black athlete would dare follow their example. Make them an example. Make them a cautionary tale. Make them symbols of what happens when you step out of line. And it worked. For the rest of the 1968 Olympics, no other athlete made a protest as bold as Smith and Carlos. The system had successfully terrorized black athletes into silence. Smith and Carlos flew back to the United States. And that is when the real punishment began. They arrived home to death threats, hundreds of them, letters mailed to their homes, phone calls in the middle of the night, voices on the other end promising to kill them and their families. Go back to Africa. You disgraced America. We will kill you. We will burn your house down. We will lynch you like your ancestors. The FBI opened surveillance files on both men. J. Edgar Hoover, the director of the FBI, saw black activists as threats to national security. His COINTELPRO program was designed to infiltrate, disrupt, and destroy black political movements. Smith and Carlos were now targets. The United States government was watching them, tracking them, building files on them. Before the Mexico City Olympics, both men had lucrative offers waiting for them. Professional sports teams, endorsement deals, coaching positions. They were world-class athletes, Olympic medalists, world record holders. They should have been set for life. After the salute, those offers vanished, disappeared overnight. Phone calls that were promised never came. Contracts that were being negotiated suddenly fell through. Doors that were open slammed shut. Tommie Smith tried to continue his athletic career. In 1969, he signed with the Cincinnati Bengals of the National Football League. He played wide receiver, but he was never really given a fair chance. He was cut after 3 seasons. His NFL career was over. He applied for coaching positions, college programs, high schools, professional teams. He was one of the greatest sprinters in history. He had a degree in sociology. He understood athletics. He understood young people. He should have been able to get a coaching job anywhere. But no one would hire him. Every application was rejected. Every interview led nowhere. The word had gone out. Tommie Smith is trouble. Tommie Smith is a militant. Tommie Smith will bring politics into your program. Do not hire him. He eventually found work as a teacher at Santa Monica College in California, teaching physical education. It was honest work, important work, but it was not the career he should have had. It was not the life his talent and achievements deserved. John Carlos had it worse. Much worse. Carlos could not find steady work. He cycled through odd jobs just to survive. He worked at a grocery store. He worked at a nightclub as a bouncer. He worked at a Puma shoe factory. He did whatever he could to feed his family. The financial stress destroyed his marriage. The emotional weight of being hated by half of America crushed him. In 1977, his wife Kim committed suicide. She could not handle the pressure anymore. The threats, the poverty, the constant struggle. She took her own life. John Carlos blamed the 1968 protest for her death, not because he regretted the protest. He never regretted standing up for justice, but because he understood the cost. The system had punished him so severely that it killed his wife. That is what oppression does. It does not just hurt you, it hurts everyone you love. For decades, both Smith and Carlos lived in relative obscurity and poverty. The world moved on. New Olympic heroes emerged. New world records were set. And Smith and Carlos were forgotten. Erased. Written out of the story. That was intentional. That was the plan. punish them, erase them, make them disappear. But the punishment was not limited to Smith and Carlos. Peter Norman paid too. Peter Norman returned to Australia after the Mexico City Olympics. Some people welcomed him as a hero. He had won silver. He had set an Australian record in the 200 meters. He was one of the greatest sprinters in Australian history. But the Australian Olympic Committee saw him differently. They saw a traitor, a white man who had stood with Black American activists, a white man who had worn that OPHR badge, a white man who had chosen solidarity over silence. The Australian Olympic Committee blacklisted him. They would not let him forget what he had done. In 1972, the Summer Olympics were held in Munich, Germany. Peter Norman had run qualifying times for both the 100-meter and 200-meter sprints. His times were fast enough to earn him a spot on the Australian Olympic team, but Australia refused to send him. They left him home, deliberately, punitively. They said his times were not good enough, but that was a lie. Norman had run 13.22 seconds in the 100 meters. The qualifying standard was 13.23. He beat it. Norman had run 20.22 in the 200 meters. The qualifying standard was 20.23. He beat it, but they still left him home. Because the punishment was never about his athletic performance. It was about the message. It was about making sure every white person in Australia understood the cost of standing with black people in their fight for freedom. Peter Norman never ran in another Olympics. His athletic career was over. He worked as a butcher. He worked as a gym teacher. He struggled with depression. He struggled with alcoholism. He felt abandoned by his country, betrayed by the institutions that should have celebrated him. For 38 years, the Australian sports establishment shunned him. 38 years. He lived with that rejection, that erasure, that punishment for doing the right thing. In 2006, Peter Norman died. He was 64 years old. Heart attack. He died without ever receiving an official apology from the Australian Olympic Committee. He died without ever being properly honored by his country. But Tommie Smith and John Carlos flew to Australia for his funeral. They were pallbearers. They carried Peter Norman's coffin to his grave. Two Black American men honoring a white Australian man who had stood with them when it mattered most. At the funeral, Peter Norman's nephew read a statement. Peter was a lone soldier. He chose to be a conscientious objector in the war against racism. That is what it means to stand for justice. That is what it costs. It was not until 2012, 6 years after Norman's death, that the Australian Parliament issued a formal apology to his family. 6 years too late. A symbolic gesture that meant nothing because the man who deserved it was already dead. That was how the system works. Punish dissenters. Erase their stories. Wait until they are safely dead. Then claim credit for celebrating them. Do you see the pattern now? Do you see how it works? This was not just about Smith, Carlos, and Norman. This was about sending a message to every black athlete, every activist, every person who might dare to challenge white supremacy. Stay in your place, entertain us, make us rich, but don't speak, don't protest, don't demand justice. Because if you do, we will destroy you. And the pattern did not stop in 1968. It continues today. The same playbook, the same tactics, the same systematic destruction of black people who use their platform for justice. Muhammad Ali, 1967, refused to be drafted into the Vietnam War. He said, "No Viet Cong ever called me a racial slur. Why should I go kill poor brown people on the other side of the world, when my own people are oppressed here at home?" He was right. He was morally right. He was politically right. The United States government stripped him of his heavyweight boxing championship, banned him from boxing for 3.5 years. The prime of his career. Gone Stolen. They tried to send him to prison. He faced 5 years in federal prison just for refusing to kill people in an unjust war. Ali eventually won his case in the Supreme Court. But those 3.5 years were never given back. The millions of dollars in prize money he could have earned were never recovered. The fights he could have fought were lost to history. Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf, 1996. NBA player for the Denver Nuggets. He refused to stand for the national anthem. He cited his Islamic faith and his opposition to American oppression of black and brown people. He sat on the bench during the anthem with his head down in prayer. The NBA suspended him. The media destroyed him. White fans called him a traitor. Un-American, disrespectful. He was forced to stand for the anthem as a condition of his return. But the damage was done. Within a year, he was out of the NBA, blackballed. His career was over at age 27. He should have had 10 more years in the league. He had one. Colin Kaepernick. 2016. NFL quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers. He kneeled during the national anthem to protest police brutality against black people. He chose kneeling instead of sitting because a military veteran told him kneeling was more respectful. He was trying to be thoughtful, peaceful, dignified. The backlash was immediate and overwhelming. White fans burned his jersey. White commentators called him divisive, un-American, disrespectful to troops. President Donald Trump called him a son of an expletive and said NFL owners should fire any player who kneels. At the end of the 2016 season, Kaepernick became a free agent. He was 29 years old, in his prime. He had taken his team to the Super Bowl in 2012. He had proven he could play at the highest level. Dozens of NFL teams needed quarterbacks, but no team signed him, not one. He has not played in the NFL since 2016, 9 years ago. He should still be playing right now. He's only 37 years old. Tom Brady played until he was 45. But Kaepernick's career was destroyed at 29. The pattern is identical, every single time. Black athlete uses platform for protest. White establishment calls them ungrateful, anti-American, divisive. Career destroyed through unofficial blacklisting. Media focuses on method of protest, ignores the message. Decades later, system grudgingly acknowledges them as heroes once they are no longer a threat. Muhammad Ali is now celebrated as a hero, but they hated him when he was alive and dangerous. They destroyed his career when he had the power to inspire others. Tommie Smith and John Carlos are now celebrated as heroes. The Smithsonian Museum has their gloves and shoes on display. San Jose State University erected a statue of them in 2005. But where were those honors in 1970? In 1980? In 1990? Where were they when Smith and Carlos needed support? When they needed jobs? When they needed the world to remember them? The honors came only after they were old and no longer a threat to the system. Only after their protest could be sanitized and commodified and sold back to us as inspiration without transformation. Colin Kaepernick will probably be celebrated the same way. In 20 or 30 years, they will build statues of him. They will put his jersey in museums. They will call him a hero. But right now, while he still has the power to play and inspire and organize, he is blackballed. That is the pattern. That is how white supremacy works. It does not just punish you, it erases you. And then, once you are no longer dangerous, it pretends to celebrate you while making sure no one follows your example. But here is what they do not want you to know. The pattern exists because the threat is real. Smith and Carlos terrified the establishment in 1968 for the same reason Kaepernick terrified the NFL in 2016. Because they exposed the lie that America is a land of freedom and equality. The lie that if you work hard and play by the rules, you will be rewarded. The lie that the system is fair and just and colorblind. Black athletes with wealth and fame and platform who use that platform for justice are dangerous to white supremacy. The system needs black athletes to entertain, to make money, to win medals for national prestige, but never to challenge the structure that oppresses their communities. That is why they punish you so severely when you speak. That is why they destroy your career. That is why they try to erase you from history. Because if one person can inspire millions, the entire system is at risk. And that brings us to today, to right now, to why this matters in 2025. Because the pattern has not stopped. The system has not changed. The same forces that destroyed Smith and Carlos in 1968 are still operating today. The same tactics, the same playbook, the same systematic suppression of black political consciousness. 56 years separate the 1968 Olympics from Colin Kaepernick's protest in 2016. But the response was identical. The playbook was identical. The destruction was identical. And it is still happening. Right now. Today, in 2020, after George Floyd was murdered by police in Minneapolis, athletes across every sport took a knee. NBA players, WNBA players, soccer players, tennis players. They wore Black Lives Matter shirts. They wore the names of police brutality victims on their uniforms. And the backlash was immediate. White politicians told them to shut up and play. White fans boycotted games. White commentators said they were disrespecting the flag and the troops and America itself. The same pattern. Always the same pattern. But here is what you need to understand. This is not just about sports. This is about economic oppression. This is about stolen wealth. This is about why the wealth gap between black and white Americans has barely changed in 56 years. In 1968, the median black household income was 60% of white household income. In 2024, it is 61%. Virtually no progress in over half a century. Why? Because every time black people build wealth, the system destroys it. Every time black people achieve success and use that success to challenge oppression, the system punishes them economically. Tommie Smith and John Carlos should have been millionaires. Endorsement deals, coaching salaries, speaking fees. They were Olympic gold and bronze medalists, world record holders. They should have been set for life. Instead, they worked odd jobs. They struggled financially. They faced decades of economic hardship. The system did not just punish them, it stole their economic futures. That stolen wealth is the same wealth stolen from Black Wall Street in Tulsa in 1921. The same wealth stolen from Rosewood in 1923. The same wealth stolen from every black community that dared to prosper. If the black families in Tulsa had not been massacred, if their businesses had not been burned, if their wealth had been allowed to grow and compound over generations, those families would be millionaires today. Multi-millionaires. If Tommie Smith had been allowed to thrive after Mexico City, his children would have inherited wealth. His grandchildren would have inherited wealth. His great-grandchildren would be starting from a place of economic security instead of economic struggle. But that wealth was stolen. Deliberately. Systematically. And it was never paid back. That is why reparations are not a fantasy or a handout. Reparations are justice. They are payment for stolen labor. Payment for stolen wealth. Payment for stolen futures. The median white household in America has $188,000 in wealth. The median black household has $24,000. That is not because black people do not work hard. That is not because black people make bad decisions. That is because white America has spent 400 years stealing black wealth and then punishing any black person who dares to speak about it. Tommie Smith is 80 years old right now, still alive. John Carlos is 79 years old, still alive. This is not ancient history. This is their lifetime, your lifetime, and the battle is still being fought, right now, today. Black athletes are still being told to shut up and play. The NFL has a Rooney Rule requiring teams to interview black candidates for head coaching positions. You know why that rule exists? Because teams refused to hire black coaches. Even now, in 2025, with a league that is 70% black players, there are only a handful of black head coaches. The NBA has had only 6 black majority owners in its entire history. 6. In a league where 80% of the players are black, the people making billions of dollars off black bodies are overwhelmingly white. College sports make billions of dollars every year off the labor of black athletes who receive nothing. They cannot be paid. They cannot profit from their own name and image. They are told to be grateful for a scholarship while their coaches make millions and their schools make billions. And when those black athletes speak up about injustice, they are told the same thing Smith and Carlos were told in 1968. This is not the place for politics. Stay in your lane. Be grateful for the opportunity. The hypocrisy is staggering and infuriating. The same Olympic committee that expelled Smith and Carlos in 1968 now uses their image in promotional materials. They sell Olympic history by showing that photograph of the raised fists. They claim the protest represents Olympic values of courage and human dignity. But they never apologized to Smith and Carlos, never compensated them for the decades of lost income, never changed the policies that allowed them to be punished in the first place. They just waited for the protest to become safe and sanitized, and then co-opted it for profit. The same thing happened with the NFL and Colin Kaepernick. In 2020, after George Floyd's murder, NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell released a video statement. He said, "We were wrong for not listening to NFL players earlier. We encourage all players to speak out and peacefully protest." Beautiful words, empty words. Because Colin Kaepernick still does not have a job in the NFL. He is still blackballed. The NFL apologized in theory while maintaining the punishment in practice. That is how the system works. Say the right words. Claim you have changed, but change nothing. Keep punishing dissenters. Keep erasing truth-tellers. Keep the structure of oppression intact while performing progressiveness for public relations. And this matters to you. Right now, today. Because if you are a black parent, your children face the same choice Smith and Carlos faced. Stay silent and succeed within the system, or speak truth and risk everything. That should not be the choice. In a just society, you should be able to succeed and speak truth. You should be able to have a career and a conscience. You should be able to be excellent at your craft and be committed to justice. But white supremacy does not allow that. It demands you choose. Perform for us and stay silent, or speak truth and be destroyed. That is your reality. That is your children's reality. That is the fight you are still fighting in 2025. But here is what I need you to understand. You are not helpless. You are not defeated. You are not victims. You are warriors. You are survivors. You are descendants of people who refuse to be broken. And what Tommie Smith and John Carlos showed you is that even when the system tries to destroy you, even when they erase your story, even when they punish you for decades, the truth eventually comes out. The truth eventually wins. The protest eventually inspires millions. That raised fist in Mexico City became one of the most iconic images of the 20th century. It inspired movements around the world. It showed black people everywhere that you do not have to accept oppression. You can stand up. You can speak out. You can demand justice even when it costs you everything. Colin Kaepernick's kneeling inspired a generation of athletes to use their platform for justice. It reignited the Black Lives Matter movement. It forced America to confront police brutality. It changed the conversation. Yes, Kaepernick paid a price. Yes, his career was destroyed. But his sacrifice meant something. It inspired millions. It changed lives. It moved the struggle forward. That is what Smith and Carlos did. That is what every truth teller does. They pay a price so that the next generation doesn't have to. They sacrifice so that their children can inherit a better world. And that is what you are called to do. Not to be reckless, not to throw your life away, but to understand that silence is not safety. Silence is complicity. Silence is choosing the comfort of oppression over the cost of liberation. You have to decide who you are, what you stand for, what you are willing to risk for justice. Tommie Smith and John Carlos made their decision on October 16, 1968. They chose justice over comfort. They chose truth over security. They chose to stand for their people even when it meant they would be punished. And now, 56 years later, we honor them. We celebrate them. We tell their story so that you can understand what courage looks like, what sacrifice looks like, what justice requires. So let me ask you, what will you choose? Will you stay silent and safe? Or will you speak truth and risk everything? Will you accept the scraps the system offers you? Or will you demand what is owed? Will you let them erase your history? Or will you preserve it and pass it on to your children? These are not rhetorical questions. These are the questions your life must answer. And the answer cannot be words. The answer must be action. If this truth has shaken you, if you feel that fire burning in your chest right now, I need you to do something. Type truth in the comments below. Let me see who is awake. Let me see who is ready. Hit that like button. Not for me. For Tommie Smith, who is 80 years old and spent 50 years waiting for the world to understand what he sacrificed. For John Carlos, who watched his wife die from the stress of their punishment. For Peter Norman, who stood with them and paid for it for 38 years and died without receiving the apology he deserved. Share this video. Send it to your children, your parents, your church group, your friends who think racism is over, your friends who do not understand why athletes protest. This is the story they hid from you in school. This is the truth they didn't want you to know. And now it is your responsibility to spread it. Because this is not just information, this is ammunition. This is the truth that breaks chains. This is the history that sets you free. And there are hundreds more stories like this. Hundreds of heroes you have never heard of. Hundreds of massacres you were never taught. Hundreds of stolen fortunes you never knew existed. We are bringing them all back. Every buried story, every erased hero, every stolen dollar. Subscribe to this channel so you do not miss the next one. But more than that, I need you to understand who you really are. You are not victims. Let me say that again. You are not victims. You are survivors of genocide. You are descendants of warriors. You are heirs to stolen empires. Your ancestors survived the Middle Passage. 40% of enslaved Africans died on those slave ships. But your ancestors lived. They survived the horror. They survived the brutality. They survived conditions designed to kill them. And you are here because they refused to die. Your ancestors survived slavery. 250 years of the greatest crime in human history. Worked to death. Beaten. Raped. Families torn apart. But they survived. They resisted. They rebelled. They ran. They fought. And you are here because they were unbreakable. Your ancestors survived Jim Crow, survived lynching, survived sharecropping, survived redlining, survived mass incarceration, survived every system designed to destroy them. And you are here because that strength is in your DNA. Tommie Smith and John Carlos are part of that lineage, part of that unbroken chain of resistance. Harriet Tubman, Frederick Douglass, Ida B. Wells, Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, Fannie Lou Hamer, Tommie Smith, John Carlos, Colin Kaepernick, and you. You are next in that chain. Your poverty is not your fault. Let me be very clear about that. The system stole Tommie Smith and John Carlos's wealth. The system stole your grandparents' wealth. The system stole Black Wall Street's wealth. The wealth gap is not because you do not work hard. It is because they stole what you earned. They stole what your ancestors built. And they are still stealing. But that means you are owed. You are not begging for handouts. You are demanding what was stolen. Reparations are not charity. Reparations are justice. They are payment for stolen labor. Payment for stolen land. Payment for stolen lives. And you have the right to demand them. Not ask, not beg. Demand. Think about what Smith and Carlos did. They were 24 and 23 years old. Young men. They stood in front of 68,000 people and hundreds of millions watching on television around the world. They knew they would be punished. They knew their careers would be destroyed. They knew they would face death threats and poverty and hatred. And they did it anyway. Because justice was more important than comfort. Because speaking truth was more important than staying safe. Because their people mattered more than their careers. That courage is in you, literally. If you are Black American, you carry the genetic memory of ancestors who resisted, who survived, who refused to be broken. Science has shown that trauma passes through generations, but so does resilience. The same DNA that got your ancestors through slavery gets you through today. And you are not alone in this fight. Peter Norman showed you what real allyship looks like. He was white. He was Australian. He had nothing to gain and everything to lose. He could have just stood on that podium and collected his silver medal and gone home and lived his comfortable life. But when Smith and Carlos asked him if he believed in human rights, he said yes. And he stood with them. He wore that OPHR badge, knowing it would cost him. And it did cost him. 38 years of rejection. 38 years of being blacklisted by his own country. He died without receiving an apology. But when he died, Tommie Smith and John Carlos flew to Australia and carried his coffin. Because that is what solidarity means. That is what standing for justice costs. That is what legacy looks like. Peter Norman could have stayed silent. He could have protected his career and his reputation and his comfort. But he chose to stand with Smith and Carlos when it mattered. And decades later, Black men who barely knew him honored him as a brother. Who will carry your coffin? What will you be remembered for? Playing it safe? Or standing for justice when it cost you everything? Your life has meaning. You are not here by accident. You are here because your ancestors survived. You are here because God has a purpose for you. Scripture tells us, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future." Jeremiah 29:11. God did not bring you through 400 years of hell for nothing. Your ancestors prayed in slave ships, and you are here. They prayed in cotton fields, and you are here. They prayed through lynchings and bombings and assassinations, and you are here. Why? Because you have a mission, not just to survive, but to thrive. Not just to thrive, but to liberate. Not just yourself, but your people. Tommie Smith understood this. When asked why he risked everything, he said, "I had to do it for my people. I had to do it for my children. I had to do it so they would know their father stood for something. That is your calling, to stand for something. To teach your children they come from warriors. To refuse to accept injustice. To demand what was stolen. To speak when others are silent. God is waiting for you to move. Faith without works is dead. James 2:26. Praying for justice is not enough. You must act for justice. Smith and Carlos did not just pray. They raised their fists. They made their bodies into weapons of truth. You do not need permission. You do not need the system's approval. You do not need white validation. You need God's calling. And if you feel it, you already have it. The time is now. Not when it is convenient. Not when it is safe. Not when everyone agrees. Now, because your ancestors did not wait for the right time. They fought when it was the only time. They resisted when resistance meant death. They stood when standing meant sacrifice. And they did it so you could be here. They did it so you could be free. They did it so you could finish what they started. You are anointed, set apart for this moment, equipped for this battle, destined for this victory. Walk in that truth. So what are you going to do with this truth? You cannot unknow this now. You cannot go back to sleep. The question is, what will you do? Tell this story. At the dinner table tonight. At church on Sunday. At the barbershop. The salon. The family reunion. Tell your children who Tommie Smith and John Carlos are. Tell them what they sacrificed. Tell them why it still matters. Demand what is owed. Reparations are not a fantasy. They are justice. Smith and Carlos are owed decades of stolen income. So are you. So are your parents. So are your grandparents. Subscribe to this channel. We are bringing back the stories they buried, the heroes they erased, the wealth they stole. Every video is ammunition in the fight for truth. Do not let them erase us again. This is our history. We must preserve it. You are part of this legacy now. You are part of this story, and your children need to know it. Let us pray. Father God, we thank you for Tommie Smith and John Carlos, two young men who stood when it was dangerous, who spoke when it was costly, who sacrificed everything for truth. We thank you for Peter Norman, a white Australian brother who showed us what real allyship looks like, who paid the price for 38 years, who never regretted standing for justice. We pray for their families, for the decades of struggle they endured. We pray for restoration of what was stolen, the wealth, the opportunities, the peace they deserved. We pray for awakening, that every person watching this video will see the truth, will feel the fire, will refuse to stay silent. We pray for the athletes today. LeBron, Kaepernick, every black athlete told to shut up and play. Give them courage, protection, vindication. We pray for justice for every stolen legacy, from 1619 to 1968 to 2025. We claim what was stolen. We demand what is owed. Strengthen us to resist erasure. Give us boldness to speak truth. Bless us with unity to fight together. And remind us we are descendants of warriors. We carry their strength. We will finish what they started. In Jesus' name, amen. Walk in truth. Demand justice. Remember their sacrifice. You are free. Until next time, build wealth. Fight oppression. Never forget.